coming from the Steel Valley. That's where it comes from. You had the steel mills and you had football, and that was it. I came up in a day where the city series was really the city series. We had all of our city schools, very tough, and it all passed through Bonnie Rogers football. Tank, 5'4", 125 pounds, right? I'm that guy, but I always felt like I had something more than them. I had this. I understood a lot more, and I felt like they wasn't getting that at home, and I was.
We're back with one more down. Today we have the pleasure of having Aldridge Tank Jones, an outstanding defensive back, return specialist out of Youngstown East High School, class of 1990. This man's reputation was seeped all over the South Side, all over the city of Youngstown, going back to the early 80s. When he lit up the Bonnie Rogers League as a youth player. So it's my pleasure to, get to talk to a guy that name made young kids on side streets all throughout the city of Youngstown want to get a piece of equipment and, try to duplicate and emulate his style and his prowess as he put it down during his youth. So it's a pleasure to have you on today and get a chance to talk to you about who you are and what you've developed into over the years.
Excuse me, Ron, thank you for the kind words. Probably too kind, but we really appreciate it. And I'm happy to be here. I love what you're doing. I've seen this several times. One more down. Congratulations to you. And again, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And the pleasure is all mine. I think me and my partner, Dallas Saunders, when we discussed doing this program and, laying out the early vision of it, we didn't know what it would ultimately become. But I think there's just an importance to make sure that we make reference and give those that put their energy and effort into, trying to pursue something greater than what a neighborhood or the streets have to offer. So we've been pleased with the outcome of the guests that we've had and some of the conversations that have developed from that. And you coming on today is certainly an added boost to that vision and continuation of what we're trying to accomplish here. So, to get started, we like to get the foundation of who a person is and what their beginnings are. When you think about yourself and the character that is Tank Jones, where is that foundation rooted at for you?
Well, like I said earlier, we are, born in the projects, Westlake. A lot of us come from there. And I believe the toughness just coming from the Steel Valley, that's where it comes from. You had the steel mills and you had football, and that was it. I came up in a day where the city series was really the city series. We had all of our city schools, very tough, and it all passed through Vonnie Rogers football. But my dad, he was a real football guy, and he believed in the 6-inch theory, and we can get into that a little bit later. But the 6-inch theory is here to here, right? We did a lot of that right in the living room. So we, by the time we got out to the field, we knew the X's and the O's, and that was the foundation of football. It wasn't running or catching or blocking; it was understanding the X's and O's right in the living room. And I think that's what gave me an advantage because I wasn't very big.
Part of our programming and these series of interviews that we've had with men, we love to put a premium on that fatherhood and that father relationship, whether there's a father present or absent. It's such a big indicator of how a kid develops and comes up, and some of those pitfalls and things that you go through as you're finding yourself through manhood. A lot of it is rooted in, where was your father at in that? So when you talk about him, imparting the mental side of the game and the 6-inch theory of playing between the ears, that's a different take than what I've heard from other guests. Can you expand and expound upon your parents and, who they were as people and their center of influence on your life and developing you and your brother?
Well, yeah, it's pretty simple. And I don't want to get too colorful, but there was two things that were demanded in our household, and it hadn't always been a great household, but up until I was about 9-10 years old, it was a family. It was one household. My mother and my father were there, my brother and I. When I turned 10, it kind of separated, but it was one thing that was understood. You will get good grades and you will play sports and you will be the best at both of those, or you're gonna get these. So we came home knowing that if we didn't get good grades, we couldn't play football. But the football part or the baseball or the basketball, it was always done at home in the yard to prepare us for going to play. So, and again, the 6-inch theory was big. He wanted us to understand, how many players are on offense, how many players on defense, why is players there. We would watch football on TV and he would, make us as a DB, for example. I'll give you an example, Ron. One of the things he taught me as a DB, look at the tight end. Tight end blocks down, it's a run. Tight end releases, it's a pass. Something as simple as that, when you're 8 or 9 years old, puts you at an advantage when you go out to football. I'm already in my back pedal because I see the tight end releasing. I seen block down, I'm coming up hard. I'm making tackles in the backfield. But those are little things that my dad emphasized at home. And, if you wasn't getting it at home and you had to get it all out on the field, you kind of was a step behind. So my dad always prepared us right at home with the X's and O's. And he would draw plays and blocking schemes, and he would do everything, and sometimes that might be 1 o'clock in the morning. We're up at 6 o'clock going to school. I'm talking as 7-8-year-olds. We were doing that.
And then, the counterbalance that, what is your mom's influence over you and your brother, and what does she bring to the table in terms of support and helping you develop to be the best person that you could be?
Well, my dad was a tough guy, hard nosed still. So mom was that soft side. She always, would be there where you could just kind of let your guard down. You didn't have to be so tough. Go and lay on mom's lap and do this. And she said, it'll be okay. You're learning a lot. So she was always our comfort zone. but she was very supportive of my dad and his passion, which was, sports, which was good grades. We played a lot of chess at a young age. And he called it the board of life, because that's what it was. You got to think 3 or 4 moves ahead. And he always tried to prepare us. And that's my fondest memory of my parents. One being my mom being supportive of my dad, and my dad always letting us know that you got to be 2 or 3 moves ahead. You can't just play for today or tomorrow. You got to think ahead. And he prepared us for that as best he could.
Now, yourself and I, being 70s babies, we have a different view of what Youngstown was, because, our early formative years, there's some economic opportunities that don't exist there in this current time frame.
Right.
You mentioned that you guys come up and get your start initially in the Westlake Terrace projects, which, those that are in the know and familiar with what Westlake was back during that time, you had to be a tough individual to operate in that environment. I think sometimes, when you hear projects, and then it brings a certain connotation of prejudgment and mentality. For you being a person that was initially raised in a public housing project, what are the positive things that you took from being immersed in that environment, and giving yourself a sense of confidence to operate in the wider world outside of the influence and protection of your parents?
To me, coming from PHA, camaraderie, right? You got to get out there and you got to interact, and you have to have the ability to adapt, right? It is what it is. So, that's survival of the fittest. That's hundreds of years old with the food chain. Those that have the ability to adapt, to change, become the top of the food chain. Those that don't, you are the food chain. You will get ate. So that was a process for me that was pretty easy. My dad always said, I want to be able to drop you in the middle of Utah and you be able to survive, right? Wherever you go, you're going to have the tools to survive. And that's where it started from. So you're not sitting inside, boy. Get outside. Go play. Everybody else, they're bigger than me. So what? Get out there and do it. All of that came from, 309 Worth Street. So, and it came from the house, So it's as simple as that. It gave us the ability to adapt to certain things and change. And even coming down to Florida, you run into people, and it gives you the ability to recognize good people, and you surround yourself with good people, and you make a home wherever you are, or you make a way wherever you are. Because we were rooted and we're grounded pretty good at home.
One of the key figures from our area in terms of football, Maurice Claret, he had his documentary on the 30 for 30. And one of the things that his brother actually said that I thought was profound and kind of described Youngstown guys to the T is, growing up there and dealing with the things that may cross your path, you have to develop a sense of sizing someone up in a split second, because it may be a life-saving move for you. Do you think that theory holds true? And if so, do you utilize that in, your everyday movements even to this day?
Man, that's the first time I heard that, Ron. But yeah, that's and when you size somebody up, right, people think that you just look and say, okay, this guy's 6'2", 200. No, that's not it. You doing that as well, but you also sizing up his mental. What do you think he or she is about to do, and how am I going to counter that? And like you say, sometimes it's split second. Now, as far as the physical side, I graduated high school. I was 132 pounds with my helmet, shoulder pads, and cleats on, right? So if I'm sizing somebody up, my dad always said, you better go ahead and strike first, because if somebody strikes first on you, it might not be no second hit, right? So I was that type, I'm going to get off first. So I have to size you up, and it's got to be just like that. But sometimes it's mental, and you size them up and you say the right thing to prevent some type of physical altercation, or you do the right thing, or you just kind of just walk away. But that sizing up thing, yeah, you had to figure that characteristic out very, very quick, coming from where we come from. And I know you've been there.
Absolutely. I think the major theme of our era of growing up in that city, and it may be a little different today. I've been away from the area for 30 years, but I go back, my parents are there, but I've carried those lessons that I was brought up with, in everything that I do. Some people look at it as being scary, but I look at it as being cautious and thinking a step ahead and strategizing and trying to avoid pitfalls. Part of that development as a youth is you get challenged a lot during our era. You can't be a person that's outside and be timid or afraid of conflict, because it's going to come in some form or another, and you have to develop thick skin. You have to develop tools. And I think from top to bottom, whatever rung of the ladder you fall on socioeconomically, we're people that can adapt and adjust to multiple environments. So, hey, I could be down here talking to guys from the neighborhood. I can be in an interview with a professional person and speak on their level. So I think when you meet a Youngstown guy, you kind of instantly recognize those characteristics that resonate with you of, hey, we're not tailbacks, we're not receivers, we're not quarterbacks, we just football players. So wherever you stick us, we're going to find a way, and we're going to find a position. For you, what is your first entryway into sports? Who introduces you to that?
Listen, again, you segue into that really, really well, because again, my dad, he was that guy. We at home watching TV, but you'd be surprised on the very first thing my dad taught me how to do on a football field. It was hike a football. The second thing, it was blocking. He said, you got to learn, if you want to play, you may not be good enough or big enough or strong enough, but you got to develop some type of skill. He taught us how to hike a ball. He said, not many people want to play center. He said, I don't care how big you are, you're going to learn how to hike a ball. You're going to learn how to block, because if you could do those two things, and I can teach you how to punt, you'll find a spot. So he taught us, how to hike a ball, how to block, how to tackle, before we even, thought about running a football or catching a football or throwing a football. He taught us the basic fundamentals. And I know you were the same thing in your household. You got to learn how to play football. Anybody can run and jump, but you got to learn how to play football. So again, I give all of the credit to my dad, and God bless. So I wish he was still here to be here, so that you can ask him the tough questions, because he would really dig in and tell you the real truth, how he thought I was a big baby. But hey, it was my dad.
So, moving into that organized version of the game, when I say coming down the steps early Saturday morning, you might hear down in the valley. You might hear when lightning strikes, thunder rolls. What do those connotations and those phrases mean to you, and what memories do they evoke in terms of that Bonnie Rogers league?
Well, let me finish it up for you. Down in the valley where the green grass grow. Well, if you wasn't playing down in the valley, Bonnie Rogers football, and that was the epitome of Saturday mornings. Everybody, the city shut down to come to Bonnie Rogers Saturday morning. Now, now that you say that, a lot of people came to see me. They came to see you. But Saturday mornings, Bonnie Rogers, every single side of the town. There was no violence. I don't ever remember being a fight down at Bonnie Rogers on a Saturday morning. Do you? So it was a time where the entire community came together. also the suburbs. You would have people from the Mid-American League, Redmond and Northside. Those coaches, everybody came down to see what real football looked like, in my opinion. Some people that played in that and I played in that Mid-American League as well, but there was nothing like, I played for the Northside Knights, and I played quarterback, but there was nothing like playing football in Bonnie Rogers. I still get goosebumps thinking about it. Didn't matter if you were playing a team that hadn't won a game, or you were playing the Sons of Thunder, Mount Calvary, right? You were so pumped up on that Saturday morning, and you could not wait to get back to school Monday to talk about what happened on Saturday morning. So to me, it was the core of Youngstown. Just like Steele is the core of the Valley, Bonnie Rogers was the core for our age group. And I'll never forget it. People still talk about that at OG Club today, Bonnie Rogers football.
Now, during your years down there, who would have been some of the key figures, making their name and giving a preview of what was to come for your age group and your peer set?
Man, that's a long. It's so many people that I played against that were, some names you may or may not know. But when I first got down to Aldridge Rogers, it was a guy by the name of Ant Poole. My dad used to call him Fat Mac. He was, it seemed like he was 280 pounds back then, running like a deer, running people over. Guys like Darren Brown, quarterback, with the real deep voice, very, very fast. But two of the guys that I looked up to was Harold and Daryl Dabney. Those guys were like, one was a running back, and one was a tailback, and they had the tape on the front that said hello and the tape on the back that said goodbye, and that a lot of people don't know about that, right? When I wanted to be those guys, I wanted to, every time I touched the ball, I was wanting to take it to the house, but it was because of mainly those three guys: Big Ant Poole, Harold and Daryl Dabney.
Oh yeah, them names are all familiar. The Pools, they were neighbors to my grandparents, and then Harold and Daryl Dabney, rest in peace, Daryl Dabney, better known as Boo Boo and Butt Butt on that side of town. And that you honing in on those small details, it's the same thing. These are the things that inspire you when you're first coming down there and getting that look. So I remember those mornings, standing there with my own father, and you see guys take the sport tape and wrap it around their thigh pads. You got guys that stick the cardboard up under there that had the butterfly pads, and there was a whole lot of competition, a whole lot of hard hitting and big plays being made down there. And then some of those guys who elevated and got to display that talent on the high school level or beyond, is tremendous. But then you think on the flip side of that, guys who had superior talent that just never got to develop and progress. So it's, I think as Tamron Smith put it, it was gladiator school down there in that park on those Saturday mornings.
Absolutely. I remember a guy, I forget, his name is Dwayne. We called him Putt back in the days. He played for the Warriors.
Oh, yeah. Dwayne Moody.
And I hope he's listening, but Dwayne Moody caught me on a sweep, and I just knew I was smooth sailing. And he grabbed me by the shirt and the arm, and he slung me around. And when I woke up, it was dust everywhere. That was probably the hardest hit. Now, Dwayne Moody was even smaller than me, but think about that. I ripped him up for 5 touchdowns that game, and he almost made me quit. And those are things that, like, he didn't care. He was coming. Everybody was coming for you. It didn't matter if you was the star or not. You could get it on any given Saturday down in the park.
The foundation of what that league represented was so important to the area. I'm kind of thinking back through some of the things that you brought up from your own memories. And, when I think sometimes where you travel to places outside of, your comfort zone, your confine. You get different views and perspectives, and some places they don't put that emphasis of fundamentals and discipline on that little league youth level. It's just something for the kids to do. But when I think back about it, I remember the Braves being very organized, the Sons of Thunder coming down there with numbers that would probably be half of an elementary school in these days.
Yep.
But you had to be prepared. You had to compete, and there, like you said, there were teams that didn't win games, but they weren't slouches, because on each one of those teams, you had people that were, fighting to prove themselves and to be able to have something to talk about on that Monday morning when you hit the playground in the morning and throw it up for some rough and tumble.
Man, you bringing it back now.
As you move up in competition level, whether that be junior high school or entering high school, what pathways start to open up to you, and how does your view of self as a football player or athlete or a performer start to change for you personally?
Well, again, I got to a point where I realized that I wasn't going to be a 6'2", 200-pound guy, right? And my dad told me this forever, and I'm thinking, no, I'll be okay. No, I didn't grow like I wanted to grow. So it became all the way evident that I had to get smarter. I had to be a smarter football player than I've ever been before. And I still don't feel like I got to the point that I needed to get to in high school. I wasn't that smart because I didn't work as hard as I should have worked in high school. I relied more on athletic ability. It wasn't until I got to college that I realized that, you got to take it back to the roots. You got to take it back to the 6-inch theory, and you have to prepare. So I started to prepare more as I got older. How do I get that advantage? Because this guy's bigger than me. He's stronger than me. He's faster than me. But I have to get to a point where I understand where he wants to go, and I beat him to that point. Not because I'm faster than him, but because I'm smarter, because I worked harder than he's worked, rather off the field, if that makes any sense to you. So
absolutely. That's leveling the playing field in a sense, because your physical gifts are limited to however you develop, but that mental side and knowing how far to line up from the person that you're covering, knowing your assignment. Throughout some of my coaching stops, those were things that you have to transition from that mindset of a player to a facilitator, so no longer is it about how fast you get there or how much you benched in the off season in preparation. It's about the little details. A play is only going to be successful if you line up right to begin with. Do you know where the guy next to you is supposed to be and what his responsibility is in relation to yours? So that mental advantage I think is key to probably 90% of the success of successful athletes.
Yep, you're absolutely right. So the preparation part, I just began to prepare more and more. I understood how to study film when I got into high school and college, because my dad and I have been studying film every single Saturday and Sunday at home. We didn't have the rewind buttons, but he made us watch games, and he made us watch particular players. He made us understand that, okay, it's 3rd and 2. What do you do? It's 3rd and 10. What are they going to do? And he would make us call out certain plays, and back then you're like, I don't want to do this, but it helped you understand when you get to the point. Then I get to college and I remember it vividly. Junior year, it's 3rd and 7. I knew exactly what they were going to do. I lined up 12 yards deep, and I never came out of my back pedal. Guy ran a 10-yard out. I picked it off and ran it for a touchdown. He's never run anything more than a 15-yard out, So, but it was little things like me understanding what they're going to do in those particular situations. So I would study film and I would look, what plays did they run on first down? What did they run on second down? What did they run on third down? What did they run on 1st and 5, 1st and 10? It didn't matter. I had a scenario for it and I was writing it down and I was preparing for it. And that's what kids miss today. It's not what you do on the field. It's before you even step on that field. How are you prepared? Of course, you need to lift the weights. Of course, you need to get the cardio. But this right here is far more greater than anything else you can do. If I'm in a spot that you want to get to already, now you just got to really beat me up to get the ball. And I'm okay with that. If you just really beat me up and out muscle me and out athletic me to get there, but I'm there. It's not like you're going to be there and I'm way over here. No, I'm going to be right there. And that's the preparation that I think is missing in some of the younger people today.
Well, let's touch on that city experience playing for the East High Golden Bears. Can you describe what your desires were entering into high school and what you wanted to accomplish, and then how that progressed throughout your time there?
It was frustrating in high school. I come in freshman year. It was only a handful of us. We had a freshman team, one of the last freshman teams, and we did really well. I think maybe we won the crown. I guess it wasn't per se a title. I think we won the crown our freshman year, and our season was over, and we were able to move up to varsity. And it was only a handful of us, guys like Steve Woodbury, Steve Shackelford, Johan Williams. Steve Shackelford, God bless his soul. He passed away. But Steve Shackelford, 6'3", 250-pound middle linebacker. Steve Woodbury, again, 5'10", 180, run like a deer. Tank, 5'4", 125 pounds, right? I'm that guy, but I always felt like I had something more than them. I had this. I understood a lot more, and I felt like they wasn't getting that at home, and I was. So I always felt like I had an advantage, and I don't go around telling people that, but that was the chip I carried on my shoulder. I know I have more tools than you. You're bigger, you're stronger, you're faster, but I have more tools. And by the way, I'm not a bad athlete, but I always felt like I had more knowledge and more weapons to go into a battle. I thought I was going to be that guy. I thought I was going to be that running back that got 15 to 25 carries a game and led the city and led the state and all state. I wasn't that guy. I just wasn't that guy. All right. I find very shortly that, these guys can run the ball really, really well. So we started splitting carries, but with a guy named Nate Woodard, Steve Woodbury, Fred Harrison was in there. Jeff Stanford, before he went to Wilson. We start splitting carries, and that theory of being a J.C. Penney or Lloyd Hopkins went out the window real fast. And I know you know those names as well, right? So those that don't know, J.C. Penney went to Miami, Lloyd Hopkins went to Florida. Like, those were East running backs. I wanted to be that guy to get the big D1 scholarship. Now we split carries. I'd be lucky to get 5 carries a game. So I knew if I got a carry, you better take it to the house. You might not get no more. So I tried to do just that.
So, I'm glad that you brought up some of those key figures. 2 guys that we've had on here as guests on the podcast, Sylvester Buster Stanley, and then, Big Kevin Brown, with those guys being, a couple grades ahead of you, what was their work ethic and leadership like? Because they played on some pretty good teams, had a lot of success. How did that trickle down to you and your classmates?
Okay, well, I'm going to talk about Buster last because he's really, really special. But I'll say something about Big Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown was so quiet. He was a silent assassin. And excuse me, Kevin Brown was a big tight end. blocked really, really well, caught everything you threw to him, and strong as a Clydesdale, right? But very, very quiet. He didn't talk much, but he was so humble. And as playing a DB or cornerback on a scout team against Kevin Brown and those guys, you often found yourself guarding a guy that was massive and could just destroy you. So I played a lot on the opposite side of the ball of Kevin Brown. So he was very, very quiet. On the other hand, Sylvester Stanley, he started as a freshman DT. People don't understand. As a freshman in high school, he was the starting defensive tackle on a juggernaut of a high school team we had. He goes on to go to Michigan and goes to the pros. But Buster was my motivation. He used to take me home at times. He was my motivation. Like, how can I be that guy? I'll never be 6'4", 290, but just his whole attitude. He always laughed. He was always happy. I've never seen Buster upset, except for sometimes Friday nights when we lost, and you wanted to stay away from him at that point in time. But Buster was my guy. When you see Buster walk into the locker room, you just kind of drop your mouth. Oh man, look at this guy. Everybody wanted to be like Buster, and he was a man amongst men. To start as a freshman at East is really, really unheard of. And Buster was that guy. So hats off to Sylvester Stanley. We call him Buster, but hats off to him.
That's a great description of how you describe, Buster and Kevin Brown, two successful guys that, got to go on to that upper level of college football. For you, how would you describe yourself as a leader for the guys that came behind you, guys like Brian Douglas, Darnell Bracy, Ortiz, and Charles Purdue?
Well, I didn't realize that I was even a leader until, somebody else, brought it to my attention. And I believe it was an article in a paper many years ago. It said "Floodgates of Youngstown Opened by Jones." And that kind of struck me because Nate Armstrong ended up going to Westminster, Brian Douglas, Eric Bostic, Booker Newberry. Now there's a guy by the name of Bill Williams, that went for basketball. But when those guys came from East, Barry Hickson, when those guys came over and they tell me they're there because of me, that kind of struck a different chord. And then when they saw my success, especially Brian Douglas, because we played the same position in college on the same team, I know I was a driving factor for that guy. And we still talk about it today. But I think I gave these guys hope that, hey, even though we come from Youngstown and, you see only very select people coming out of Youngstown going on to the next level, like Kevin Brown and Buster, you could still play and you could still make a name and you could still be seen by everybody. And that made me feel good to know that people came out of Youngstown, particularly Youngstown East, and came to the college I went to, and they actually got to play. And again, Nate Armstrong, he got a jacket you can't get in the store either. He's a Hall of Fame offensive tackle. And when I talk about pancake, I ain't talking about Tony Mandridge. I'm talking about Nate Armstrong. He 5'10", 5'11", 280, and will run you over, right? And he can move. And he's another Hall of Famer. So I'm very excited. Those guys got ring. They got something I didn't get. They got a championship ring. They won a title. I played in several, but I never actually got that title. And those guys got that, but they would have never been there if I hadn't went there. So I'll take that. I'll take that ring title and act like I got it.
Now, a couple of those guys, Nate, Darnell Bracy, Charles Purdue, Brian Ortiz, that I got to compete against them, my junior year. And for myself and Charles, we competed, junior high up through high school. If I had to characterize, that progression, I didn't get to play my freshman year in high school, but on the team sophomore, junior, senior year, and it was a dogfight that 90 season. Brian Douglas was a key guy. Jermaine and John Fitzgerald, those were two, vicious guys on the defensive side of the ball. But the one thing about East guys, regardless of the record, was that physicality on that defensive side of the ball. They took a lot of pride. Darnell Bracey was an outstanding quarterback during my time. Charles Purtue was just a dynamic athlete, period. Mm-hmm. But when you think that you want the ball and you stick your foot in the ground and turn it upfield, you could always count on getting hit by somebody on that defensive side of the ball for East. For you, what are some of the fond memories that you have of some City Series games or competition during your time at East?
Well, one of the most memorable, and let me touch on Charles Purdue real quick before I get into that. Charles Purdue, I think, had the luxury of sitting back and watching a plethora of running backs before him, and he also had Brian Douglas on beside him. But you got, if you think about Charles Purdue, you have Steve Woodbury, you have Nate Woodard, you have myself, Fred, and then you got Jeff Stanford, and you got Brian Douglas. And then you got this guy, Charles Purdue, that has all of the tools. He's strong, he's super fast, and he's super smart. And it showed, because then this guy ended up going to Youngstown State and being a running back at Youngstown State. So he was smart. He was able to pick all of the tools out of all of us, and he kind of had it all. He had a nice little repertoire. So, kudos to Charles Purdue. I love that kid. He was, he was a lot younger than me, but he was always respectful, but he was tough as nails. But moving forward to some of the games, for me, it was always fun playing, South and Cheney. But the Rand Tigers, when you heard them guys in that tunnel and they're screaming, "We won't East High," and they came out, and you got guys like Pat Humphrey looking like a man, at 15 years old. Like that was always, to me, the toughest ball games when you played against Rand Tito, the mayor. Again, them guys 250 pounds in high school, quarterback 200 pounds. You needed a next day to rest after you played Rand. I hope they're not listening, because I don't want this on record. But Rand was always the toughest. I'll go back to my junior year. Vic Huntley was a quarterback. God bless his soul. And we got Rand beat. We're on the 3-yard line. We're about to go in for the winning touchdown, and we run option left. And maybe you can help me, Ron, and get that footage, because it was a fight in the locker room after that, because Vic says I fumbled. I says he never pitched me the ball. Either way, you know who picked up and ran the ball 97 yards for a touchdown? Patrick Humphrey. He picks up the fumble and runs 97 yards for a touchdown. We lose the City Series that year. And it was but that was the most memorable game for me, because it was a knockdown drag out. And it started from the tunnel. We can hear them yelling at us from the tunnel before we even saw them. And it, was reminiscent of down in the valley and, in Bonnie Rogers. But that was probably my most memorable high school game.
Yeah, those teams that they carried over there, they had a lot of outstanding guys and athletes. When you talk about the Derek Lewises, the Craig Powells, the Daryl Shepherds, you got Kevin Harris over at Wilson tearing it up. Ray Isaac coming through, ran through that tenure. a lot of talent that was concentrated in the City Series at that time. And, as I progressed into high school, some of it dipped for certain schools. And then we certainly got a boost over at Cheney because a group of us all went as one clump, and we had that familiarity with each other from elementary school, playing against each other in Bonnie Rogers. So that success of being able to compete with your friends and guys that in and out. What did that mean to you to be able to come through with guys that you trusted and didn't have to question their heart or their ability?
I mean, it meant everything. It's sort of like going anywhere. Coming up, back in Youngstown, you didn't want to go to a club, without somebody you trusted, right? You don't want to go to battle with people you can't trust. And we developed all of that. And again, our senior year, we only won 3 games, but we was bringing it every game. We were bringing it, and we always felt like we were going to win that game. We never went into a game thinking, oh, well, we're playing Cheney, so we're going to lose. No, we went into the game thinking we're going to beat the crap out of everybody we played. Just didn't happen that way. And again, you went to Cheney, and I'm kind of getting off the subject, but I wanted to throw this out there too because it's good. You probably know a guy named Chris Samarone, right? Okay, Chris Samarone changed my career path. He laid a hit on me, and he broke my ankle in 3 places our senior year. And I still talk to him to this day, and his wife cusses him out right now about it. But that was another memorable play, to go against a guy that was just a massive individual, very good guy, no malicious intent, went on to play at Kentucky. But it's games like that and it's people like that I still enjoy talking to and talking about this experience that we had in high school.
Now, so you segueing into that, what are your prospects leaving East, and how do you ultimately decide on Westminster as your choice?
Well, again, like I told you before, Chris Samarone, I got hurt. Was 3rd game in this season. Chris helped me break my ankle, and I couldn't come back into the last game of the year, which was against South. But at that point, before I got hurt, there was a group of us that had our eyes on Youngstown State. Again, Jim Tressel was the coach. Myself, Steve Woodbury, and Steve Shackelford, we all spoke. We're going to Youngstown State. We going as a package deal. At least in my mind, that's the way it was. So when I got hurt, the conversations kind of went away, and I got word that Tressel felt like I was too small to play D1 ball. Feelings was hurt a little bit, but I understand. Again, remember, I'm 130 pounds with my helmet on, in cleats. So things went different ways. Steve Shackelford ended up going to Youngstown State. They wanted to put his hand in the dirt. He didn't like it. Steve Woodbury ended up going to Eastern Michigan, and he got to play what he wanted to play. And I ended up going to Westminster. That senior year, we had a lot of guys go play football off of that team. And none of us really probably went where we wanted to go. I had a lot of offers from a lot of different schools, some of them D1. But when I got hurt, there was one school that always paid attention. I always heard a distinct voice coming down that tunnel, and his name was Scott Reniger. He was our offensive line coach at Westminster, but he would always say, "Go get him, Tanker." And you could hear him in the stands distinctively. He had a real heavy voice. So it became apparent that, they really liked me for whatever reason. But they didn't like me for anything I did on the football field. They liked me because of what I was doing in school. they felt like that this guy was the definition of a student athlete. So, okay, you can get the grades, but by the way, you're a football player. Okay, come on. And I didn't understand the word student athlete back then, but they wanted student athletes. They didn't want an athlete that, you got to be a student. They wanted student athletes. They wanted you to get those grades right. They wanted to know that you could go to this school and handle it, because they didn't have football scholarships at Westminster. You wasn't just going on an athletic scholarship. No, you had to get grants. You had to get loans. And you had to be a student athlete or they didn't want you. And that was special to me. It was special to my dad.
I relate to you in our pre-conversation of, that connotation of being a small school guy or a small school player. And, I think people put too much of a premium on what is Power 5, what is Division I football, because it's on television. It dominates the media. Right. But I think the average person does not understand the level of competition and how many great coaches are at some of those smaller levels, and that no matter what level you make it to or play, you're still advancing from a wider pool of kids that never get to go on to that next step. So for me, I feel like it's special for anybody to continue that pursuit because you're developing, you're learning more, you're finding out more about yourself. It's that first time for most of us where you're starting to think about life beyond athletics, life beyond sport. What are you going to do as a career? How do you transition and shift away from that athletic mentality? You certainly went over there and made your mark on the field. You got 20 career interceptions, have been ranked in definitely the top 5 in career punt return yardage. What were some of those game experiences like for you competing at that NAIA Division II level? And then did you have any reservations about playing at a place that wasn't necessarily your intended destination starting out, but did you eventually develop a reverence and a love and a respect for what your situation afforded you there?
Yeah, I did. Coming out of high school, no, I didn't think that I'd play what you would call small division ball. But once I embraced it and realized that you could still get your head knocked off on this small division ball, that, it's just like my dad told me, you better prepare. If you don't prepare, you will get yourself hurt. Coming out of high school, I thought I didn't have to lift weights. I didn't lift weights until my junior year of college. My preparation had to go to a whole different level because it was guys getting up at 4:00 in the morning, going to the gym, working out, going to class, leaving class, working out, going back to class, come back, work out, and then go to football practice. It was that type of level. So, you're looking at a cornerback on the other side of you that's benching 300 pounds and he's 210 pounds. And this is NAIA ball, but they are coming. You got receivers that just want to embarrass you every day at practice, right? It just was, like you said, it was a whole different level. So I had to really, really prepare more, but my dad had already prepared me for this. I already knew what to do. So when I start doing it, and I don't want to sound cliché, but the game started to slow down for me. My body started to develop. And when the game slowed down for me, then my athletic ability my mental preparation started to take over. And I felt like dominate. And it was relatively quickly. It was right after my freshman year. I came in as a sophomore. And I felt like there is no receiver that can catch one pass on me. And it's a mentality, how you go at it. So when I got a pass caught on me, I was kind of pissed off about it because he wasn't supposed to get one, let alone 3 or 4 or score on me. You don't supposed to get any. So I felt good at what I was doing. I felt good about the preparation. I felt good about taking a notebook home and a playbook. And when you get into college, it's like this. And a lot of people don't understand that. Playbooks are extensive. So if you don't have that sixth theory or that ability to study, you're going to get killed out there, no matter what level you're on. So I used to get teased all the time. Oh, you doing that at that small college? Yeah, whatever. But those are the same people that never even played ball at the next level. I didn't get that from people that played at a D1 level, because they understood, all right, if you're that good, you went to D1, go and get you a jacket you can't get in the store. I started to feel good about where I was at, because, I was supposed to do that. I was supposed to dominate. I was supposed to be All-American. I was supposed to do that. So I didn't go in with a mindset like, oh, I want to be somewhere else. No, I wanted to be there. So now I'm here. I'm going to dominate, and you better not punt me the ball. You better not kick me the ball, because I'm going to make you pay. It was that mindset that I had back then. And again, it didn't matter that I graduated 160 pounds with my helmet on in college. I was a small guy, but I understood what I needed to do to put myself in a better position. And I don't regret any of it.
Now, making that acclimation to college on the athletic front, you did very well. What was the academic rigor like for you at Westminster? Did you already have your career path and the things that you wanted to pursue coming in, or was that something that took some time to kind of settle into and decide on?
Man, Ron, that was a tough go. I had no idea what I wanted to do as a 17-year-old freshman. Excuse me. So I go into college, and I'm a computer information major, right? CIS, computer information systems major. And I go in, and I have no idea. I didn't realize that I didn't even have the classes I needed in high school to even enter that major, right? A lot of math, a lot of business stats. And what people don't understand is that you go to a computer information class, right, during the day, and then you have to go to a lab at night. Well, labs at night are between 4 and 7 o'clock. Well, what are we doing at 4 or 7 o'clock? We're at football practice, right? Something's not gonna jive. So I struggled my freshman year because in my mind, I'm not that smart of a guy. I got this big major, and they did not care that I was a star football player. Those professors don't care about that. I wasn't there on an athletic scholarship. I was there on an academic scholarship playing football. So they didn't care about that. Now, they loved them some football, but if you failed this class, you ain't playing football. So I had to readjust some things, and I stuck it out for about 2 years, and I was able to get me a couple of core classes, and then I had to back it up a little bit to business administration and kind of focus on more on things that because I didn't want to give up football. I gave up track. I gave up trying to play basketball. That was not going to happen when you get to the next level. You got to pick one. It's just not enough hours in a day. So I started to understand that, all right, I got all of these hours in a day. I have to make sure that I get this work done. I work out, because it's not like you go to football practice, then you're done. No, you still got to work out. You still got to do in-season working out. It's a lot of stuff you got to do. So I began to manage my time better. I didn't like the fact that it interfered with my partying. But, we worked that out a little bit, but when you get to college, it's not that you're smarter or better than anybody. It's just that you learn how to manage your time a lot better than you did. It's just time management. It's not that hard. If you want to go party and you want to go do certain things, realize that the football is going to suffer, the grades are going to suffer, something's going to suffer because of what you're trying to do with that time. And if you can manage your time, if I got a great message to send it, manage your time. Learn how to not waste those hours or minutes in a day when you're in college, and that'll help you.
Now, when you're in that competition mindset and, displaying your athletic talents, there's a lot of give that you have to sacrifice. On the other side of that, what are the parts of football that have taken away from you? And by what I mean by that is, what are those tough moments and those challenges and some of those experiences where you may have some doubt or you may not be up to par or at your best? And then, how do you think that you overcame those things, or what energy did you pull from to overcome some of those difficult moments that the game can offer you?
And you're talking on the field, right?
It could be on or off, and I think the root of my question is in that transition from high school to college. In high school, you kind of get placed on a track and you progress. If you have the goods, the tools, you kind of stay in your role in your lane and can ride that out through your senior year. I think the shock for a lot of high school guys transitioning to colleges, there's that level of criticism and critique that comes with having that position coach, and football getting more mental, a lot more analytics oriented. And there's times where maybe you're not catching on to concepts. Maybe a guy gets the best of you, you're injured, or you're tired, and you just get a mental downturn at certain points throughout your career. You have to fight through that. And I think the resiliency for most that are successful at it just comes from being that disciplined, regimented athlete. But we talk about our glory side of playing the game and our feats, but for those feats and all that glory accolades, there's those tough things that you have to work through to attain that. And I'm just kind of curious of what some of those things may have been for you personally.
Yeah, this is a good one too. Great question, Ron. So one, and it goes off, most of everything I say will go back to a lesson from my dad. Okay. One of the things that he would say, there's going to be a point in time where you just get your bell rung, right? And you want to lay on the field and this, that, and the other. You have to ask yourself a question: are you hurt or are you injured? And one of the things he never ever wanted us to do is lay on the field. Why are you laying down on the field? Number one, if you're not knocked out and your legs are not broken, right? Why are you laying on the field? Get up, get off, lay out on the sideline, but get off the field. And that's sort of a mental toughness there, because you can get hit in the shin with a face mask, right? And that hurts like hell. And you just don't want to get up, but you got to get up. And you can hobble or hop on one leg to the sideline. It's things like that. But it wasn't just that. It was what was being told to you over the years, like, get up, be tough, suck it up, So, but if your leg is broken and you can't get up, all right, you're injured, right? You're not just hurt. So what I'm getting to is you got to understand what's the difference between being hurt and injured, right? And if you can distinguish that, right, that's half the battle. That's half the battle. Because if you can distinguish that, even if you're injured, right, you can still get up and walk. Kobe tore his Achilles. He got up and he walked off. And that's the mental toughness that happens at home. So when you get into college or the next level or whatever it may be, and you're in there and you realize that you can't understand the playbook, and this guy over here that can't walk and chew gun at the same time, but he can understand the playbook, and you got to watch him play because you don't have it up here, or you're not mentally tough enough. So you got to watch somebody that's inferior to you in all ways, but he understands the playbook. He's in the right play. He may get ran over, but he understands his assignment. And to me in college, I could not sit back and watch a guy that understood something because I didn't want to work hard enough to understand the playbook. And that happened one year, freshman year. I just didn't understand what they were asking me. Like, you give me this book and it's 8:00 at night, and now you expect me to understand everything at 3:00 the next afternoon. Well, that's that dedication. That's that time management. Take the time to look through it, because it just might be easy if you look through it enough.
great, synopsis of how you make it through difficult things. In your professional life, you're juggling multiple ventures in different areas. Can you talk a little bit about what you do in your everyday life for your career?
So yes. Again, I am the chief operating officer of a steel manufacturing company based out of Florida. We have a corporate office in Miami and a secondary office in Sanford, Florida. I've been in, when I graduated college in business administration from Westminster, I got hired on with a steel manufacturing company called Dietrich Metal Framing. We are now one of those companies that competes with Dietrich. But I've been in the steel industry since 1995, and I've kind of took my lumps, paid my dues in that industry, and I worked my way up to this position now. But it's just a title. I really enjoy what I do. Some of the stuff comes easy, a lot of the stuff comes hard, and I'm going to say some tough things too right now because what some Black men don't realize is that this corporate America is made up of what? Middle-aged white men, right? That's in most industries, okay? So this industry is no different. So to be a COO in this business is a big accomplishment to myself. And of course, I'll pat myself on the back with that. But corporate America is made up of middle-aged white men. And I like the fact that there's young or even old can look at me and say, hey, we can do it. We can get those three letters, as you said before, CEO, COO, HOF. We can get those letters too, coming from the projects, come from the east side, wherever.
And then you founded your own consulting venture. Can you talk about what you do in that realm and what services you offer under that banner?
Okay, with the consultant company, I kind of said, I kind of overlap that into what I do in the steel industry. What I'm very good at doing is looking at a company's business and looking at their financials and saying, okay, this is the process or the people or the procedure that I see wrong. And I give them suggestions on whether it be people, procedures, or processes on how to fix that, right? So my specialty is taking a company from point A to point B, and I've gotten a label as the fixer. Even where I'm at now, one of the owners from Canada called me and was like, hey, I need you to come down. And, I turned him down 3 times. And I said, well, Andy, what do you want from me? He said, I don't know what I want. I just know that you're the fixer. So yes, and that's what I did. I'll top down manage or bottom up manage. And you go and you look at things that through your experience or through my experience that I know can work. And I start implementing those procedures. I start implementing those processes or policies or even people to get those tasks done to get a company to the very next level. In this particular case, we took a company from 34 million to 85 million. I'd love to take that credit. I'm not going to say it's all because of me, but I know that my policies and my procedures and my way of doing things had a heavy hand in that, and I'm very proud of that. That people would listen and embrace what I have to bring to the table. And again, they have no idea that it comes from 309 Worth Street, or it comes from 923 Brentwood, or it comes from 1514 Forest View Drive on the east side. Like, they don't understand that part of it. You do, because you know me and you know of me. But again, that tough upbringing or that, when you really want to lay down, that wasn't an option for me. when I graduated college, it wasn't a matter of me going back home and trying to figure it out for you. I didn't have a home to go back to, right? So what are you going to do? So I ended up moving to Chicago, right? And trying to figure it out. Didn't understand credit, didn't understand anything, because, I wasn't afforded that luxury. And again, I got a lot of luxuries. I got the 6-inch theory about life and sports, but my dad and my mom, they didn't understand credit or business or diminishing return, things like that. They didn't understand those terms. I had to learn that over the way. But the mental toughness that they instilled in me gave me the ability to, okay, can I take this blow? Can I take this middle-aged white man making racial connotations because he doesn't feel like I should be even in the same room with him, right? It's sort of that mental toughness, I compare those negative racial connotations to if a guy pushes you and you hit him back and you get a 15-yard penalty. They always see the second guy, right? So I relate those type of situations to corporate America, because they're going to throw shots at you. They're going to jab at you. How tough can you be? Can you out tough them? Can you outthink them? Can you play chess instead of checkers? I've been playing chess since I was 4. So, it kind of conditioned me for it.
And then, with your love for the city, you opened up the OG Club on South Avenue in Youngstown, Ohio. Can you talk about what that is and how that came about, and then what you hope to see it develop and blossom into, and then kind of just tie it back into what parts of that venture represent you, Aldridge Jones, the Youngstown native, Aldridge Jones, the athlete, and Aldridge Jones, the businessman?
Well, now you're talking about my passion, right? Because over the years, I'm 51 years old, right? I'd love to be able to say I can go out on the football field and catch an interception and run it back 80 yards for a touchdown. Can't do that anymore, right? But what I can do, I've learned to play golf. And I'm still horrible at it, but I love it. It's a passion of mine. Transforming a business is also a passion of mine, but playing golf and transforming a business of my own is double. It's like double the reward. So I've got an opportunity to bring something back to my home city, to all of the guys that I played football and basketball and baseball and ran track with. I can bring all of those same guys back, and we can have these type of conversations right there in my very own. So what did I do? I went right back to my core. There's been a young lady that I've been chasing since the 3rd grade. Her name is Taisha Klingscale. She was married once, named Taisha McClendon. You may know her ex-husband, but I had to go get her because I knew I couldn't do it without her. And she runs the business, but she is my very best friend in this world. We sat down and we talked and we got things together, and we said we want to bring this back to Youngstown. And that's exactly what we're doing. And these type of conversations, even though they're not recorded, these are the type of conversations we have right at the OG Club. And by the way, if you want to learn how to swing a golf club, you want to play on 200 courses, whether it be in Dubai or wherever, you could play it right there in the hood, as they call it, in the center of Youngstown, south side of Youngstown. You can play golf, you can listen to good music, you can eat good food, and you're not going to have any problems. There's no fighting, there's no shootings. We at OG Club welcome mature adults. And that was always my goal, to be able to come back home in some form or fashion, bring it back home for one more down.
That's outstanding. so many good people and great people have come from that city, and you see that in the influence of college football all over the country. For you to have that fortitude and desire to come back home, where some may see some of the depression and it isn't what it once was in its heyday, but if there's ever going to be a turnaround and a return, it has to start somewhere, and you're not going to get something from someone coming from the outside that doesn't understand the fabric of the city and the community. So what you're doing, I think, is outstanding. I think it needs to be replicated and duplicated in other areas. And for you to be a person willing to put yourself out front and invest into the city when you don't have to, that's a big time move, and it's a man's move. So I commend you on that, and I hope that it goes on to be everything that you want it to be and more. I'm glad that you brought up that one more down, because as the theme of our segments in our podcast, we like to preface that question with individuals to give them time to reflect. So for you, Aldridge Tank Jones, if you had that one more down, to repeat, to go back and do over again, what would that be for you? Who would it be accompanying you? Can you set that up for us?
That's pretty easy, and we can go all the way back to the beginning. If I could have my dad here explaining or even giving you guys an illustration or just a sample of what I had the luxury of getting my entire life, I think you guys would understand the struggle. I think you guys would understand where I am now and why I want to bring it back to the city. Because my dad was by far the number one influence on what I did on a day-to-day basis. And I would love to sit on our couch, get a piece of notebook paper, and draw 22 X's and O's and go over a play. That's what I would want to do. One more time, one more down. That would be my favorite, to have my dad back doing just that.
I appreciate you coming on and being a guest with me today, giving me that insight and some of that vision, sharing your experience on and off the field. I think for those that are close to you and, have watched your progression over the years, they'll appreciate seeing some of those sides of you that they may never have thought about or think about. Your reputation was always out in front of you, but getting to have an hour and 15-minute long conversation about who that actually is, it's been more than I could have ever imagined and expected. So thank you very much for agreeing to do this with us.
It's been my pleasure, Ron, stand-up guy, man, and I wish you all of the success. The fact that you did your homework and you dug in and you allowed me to be here. All blessings to you and your show. Tell your partner we love you, and please let us know how we can support you. Again, OG Club 330.com. Come visit us. We want you to have a segment there at OG Club. I think you'd like that.